Welcome to In Depth with Academia. I'm Richard Price, CEO of Academia EDU, and I'm genuinely delighted to have you along for today's journey because we're diving headfirst into a question as old as humanity itself. What is the purpose of life? And not just in like a coffee shop philosophy way, but through the thoughtful work of Suresh Soni, whose book, Life and Living Trilogy, The Purpose of Life, takes us on an epic exploration across philosophy, psychology, and spirituality. And, let me just remind everyone up front, my role here is to present and discuss, not to endorse. So as we move through this, I'll stay as neutral as I can. So what's at the center of Soni's work? The core question, the one most of us bump into sooner or later, why are we here? What is this all for? According to Soni, these are not just private musings. They're challenges that have shaped humanity, driven civilizations, and, kept mystics and scientists up at night. And honestly, can you think of a bigger question? I certainly can't, except maybe why airlines serve those tiny pretzels instead of peanuts these days. But that really doesn't compare, does it? Anyway, Soni's approach is pretty fascinating. He doesn't just anchor his discussion in one tradition or discipline. He draws from ancient Vedic thought, Buddhist insight, Western philosophy, modern psychology, and even recent neuroscience. The book is like this huge tapestry, weaving together self-understanding, collective identity, and crucially, the search for meaning beyond our day-to-day routines. One of the book's key arguments, and again, I'm not taking a side here, is that fulfillment is not about reaching some static destination, it's about embracing the journey itself. Soni urges readers, and perhaps all of us, to find richness in growth, connection, and yes, even our struggles. There's this focus on looking inward, through, say, meditation or mindful living, to foster personal transformation and ultimately contribute to a more harmonious world. What's cool is that Soni doesn't skirt around the messier realities of human existence. He talks about the complications of modern life, our obsession with material gain, the stresses of social competition, and, maybe most provocatively, the spiritual emptiness that can creep in even when life looks successful from the outside. He calls out how society's fixation on wealth or status often just feeds a cycle of discontent, leaving people frantic but unfulfilled. Sound familiar? And perhaps the most striking part of Soni's thinking is his suggestion that spirituality, not rigid, institutionalized religion, but a more personal, open-ended journey, holds the key to meaning in our turbulent era. He argues that the world might actually be better served if we collectively shift from following inherited religious dogmas to nurturing an individual sense of spiritual purpose. That's quite a claim, but he's not advocating for chaos, rather for a sort of quiet revolution that, in his view, could promote empathy, brotherhood, peace, and a global sense of interconnectedness. His roadmap for getting there? First, fostering introspection and awareness, looking inward honestly, accepting our limitations, and striving for authenticity instead of social approval. He points to practices like yoga, meditation, and compassionate action, not as ends in themselves, but as ways to ignite self-discovery. Soni also emphasizes the need to rethink our relationship with religious tradition, championing the idea of reform or reinterpretation rather than blind adherence. Now, to keep this all grounded, what does this mean for you and me? Well, Soni's work essentially invites us to see purpose not as a riddle someone else can answer for us, but as an open field. We're urged to experiment, to reflect, to patiently reconsider our habits and beliefs, and if we're up for it, to participate in building a world where spirituality is about seeking truth, not enforcing conformity. It's not so much, here's the answer, as, here's a toolkit. What might you build with it? And, before I wrap, quick digression. Do you ever notice how, when you're reading about life's big questions, you suddenly become hyper-aware of your own tiny choices? Like, I started thinking about why I put my left shoe on before my right. Is there purpose to that? Probably not profound purpose, but maybe some. Just, some food for thought. Sometimes the mundane is as revealing as the deep. Anyway, as always, I want to emphasize, academic research, and yes, works like Soni's, aren't about final answers. They're invitations to reflect, experiment, and see what meaning we can coax out of our own journeys. The ideas in Life and Living Trilogy The purpose of life don't claim to replace your worldview, but to challenge, spark, and accompany you. And isn't that what the best research is all about? So, thanks for joining me for this episode of In Depth with Academia. Keep questioning, keep reflecting, and most of all, remember that your search for purpose is both ordinary and singularly extraordinary. Until next time, this is Richard Price, staying neutral and wishing you an inspired journey.